Emulating Emily Dickenson. The House Upon the Height by Emily Dickenson. The house upon the height. The wagon never reached. No dead were ever carried down. No peddler's cart approached, whose chimney never smoked, whose windows, night and moon, caught sunrise first, and sunset last, then held an empty pane, whose fate conjecture knew. No other neighbor did, and what it was we never lisped, because he never told. Explanation. First, I want to point out that this poem is 12 lines and has no rhyme scheme. The next thing that I would like to point out is the use of the capital letters, especially in the beginning of the poem. I made the letters red to emphasize them. I think that they're there because Emily Dickinson is trying to make the reader to emphasize these words and give them a greater meaning. Explanation continued. This first stanza is about a house on a hill that is really hard to get to. Nothing is ever seen leaving, so no one attempted to try and do anything in regards with who lived there. No sign of life was ever seen from the house. Day after day, it would just sit there with days passing. When I first read this, I didn't understand what conjecture meant, so I looked up the definition, and it is a message expressing an opinion based on incomplete evidence. The fate of the house was never known. No one really knew like what would happen to it or like what was going on with it. So people would just think of the way it was and but they would never really tell anybody what they would think of the house. And that's just what they did. This is my poem, The House Along the Bend. A house along the bend. It was a pit stop. Cars would come and cars would go. The fire was always burning, whose windows would flicker, catching lights, going on and off. Then, when night came, it was dark. Along with improvements that gave it a facelift came compliments. Everyone agreed. It was a good, needed change. My explanation. This poem also has 12 lines, just like the Emily Dickinson poem, and also does not have a rhyme scheme. I made the red letters once again capitalized in my poem because these were the words that I wanted to emphasize, just like Emily Dickinson. I also made the second words capital because that's what Emily Dickinson did to hers, and I wanted to go along with her poem. Explanation continued. I made this poem similar to Emily Dickinson's poem by writing about a house, but instead I wrote about my house and how I think of my house and the remodeling we did last year to it. The first stanza I talk about where it is on my street, the bend. My house is like along the bend of a windy road, and so we just call it the bend at my house. Then I tell the reader what I consider my house and how busy my family is. So I call it a pit stop because we come, we sleep, eat, and then we go again. In the second stanza, I tell the reader that we have fires in the house during the winter, and that we're always going from room to room, turning on and off the lights in the house. This causes the flickering. Finally, in stanza 3, I tell the reader that we've made improvements to the house and how all the neighbors would compliment us on our upgrade to the house. Comparing the two. Obviously, they're both about a house, but in the Emily Dickinson poem, nobody is there. At my house, people always come and go, and then comparing to the second stanza, whose chimney never smokes, and ours is always we always have a fire during the winter, so there's always smoke coming out of the chimney, and our windows catch the flicker of lights going on and off, especially in the dawn or dusk, and then at night. But then when night comes, it turns dark because we all go to bed. And then in the last one, they're almost complete opposites, where nobody really talks about the house or anything. But with ours, people talk about our house and compliment us. Thank you.